Brandon Atkinson, the former grocery manager who gave up his dreams for family, found out about his wife's infidelity when she served him divorce papers on the oak table. They had selected together a silent admission of her 6-month affair with another man. However, the end of his marriage marked a new beginning for Brandon. After uncovering a life-altering treasure, he transformed his world, flourishing in ways no one could have foreseen. His wife had traded security for an illusion, but Brandon opted for reinvention. With fresh resources and purpose, he rebuilt his life, surpassing expectations, even those of her. But then he vanished without a trace. This captivating narrative was the centerpiece of a movie that won Best Picture, competing with other films in CGI. Before we delve into the intricacies of this compelling saga, I invite you to share your location in the comments below. If you appreciate stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to stay updated on future releases. On a typical Saturday morning, the kitchen was unexpectedly tranquil, the mild Alabama sunlight streaming through lace curtains, creating gentle designs on the table where Brandon Atkinson sat. This was the same table he and Riley had chosen jointly more than 2 decades ago, a robust oak design that had endured numerous family meals, late-night discussions, and occasional disagreements. Yet today, the table felt like a wall, an inflexible partition separating him from Riley, who sat opposite him. Her hands held a manila envelope tightly, her well-groomed fingernails tapping rhythmically on its edge. Brandon observed her, noticing how much she appeared unaltered in their 25 years of marriage. Her light brown hair still shimmered, meticulously styled as if she had just exited a salon. She wore a modest yet attractive attire, her athletic physique reflecting her recent jogging routine. Calm exterior, yet subtly tense, she pressed her lips together. Surreal was the moment for Brandon, who'd invested countless hours managing the neighborhood grocery store, crafted a secure life with Riley, and raised twins Alice and Rachel, now excelling at Columbia University. Their life wasn't flashy, but stable. However, that reassurance crumbled as Riley broke the silence. Her composed yet forceful voice echoed like someone preparing for a challenging undertaking. She pushed an envelope towards him. "What's this?" he asked, maintaining his composure though his voice was hushed, a premonition of unease in his heart. "This is our divorce papers," she stated plainly, "but I don't have to give them to you." The words lingered in the air, heavy and unfamiliar. His eyes widened, brain struggling to comprehend her statement. "Divorce," he repeated, scarcely louder than a whisper. "Yes," Riley spoke softly, yet firmly. "I've pondered this extensively. It isn't due to anything you've done wrong. As a husband, Brandon, you've been exceptional, an outstanding father." The words on the envelope before Brandon, petition for dissolution of marriage, bold and stark, played in his mind as he scrolled through memories. Their high school encounter, their humble wedding, the late nights tending to their daughters, and the countless small pleasures they'd experienced together. It all felt surreal against this present reality. Brandon shifted in his chair, casting uncertain glances between Riley and the envelope. "I don't grasp it," he said, his voice trembling with feeling. "Why now? After everything? After so many years?" Riley sighed, her guard slipping momentarily. "It's not about you, Brandon. You've done nothing wrong. You found someone else." He heard it as a punch, tightening his jaw and gripping the table edge. "Someone else," he echoed with disbelief. "Yes, his name is Derek Grant. He's a real estate developer. We've been together for 6 months." Brandon felt his chest constrict as the room seemed to close in. The vision of their life, the house, the family pictures on the walls, the shattered dreams. "You're leaving me for him?" he queried, his voice hushed and strained. Riley hesitated, her resolve weakening momentarily. "It's not that straightforward. Derek, he's driven, passionate about life. I respect that in him. And I need more, Brandon. I want to feel alive again." Brandon shook his head, wrestling with her words. "I gave up promotions for you for the girls. You chose to remain in this town believing it was our shared wish. Was that a misjudgment?" Riley sighed deeply, her eyes reflecting a blend of remorse and resolve. "No, it wasn't a mistake. You were ideal, Brandon. Too ideal. Yet, sometimes, perfection falls short. A heavy silence ensued, broken only by the sound of Brandon shifting in his seat. He stared at the envelope, feeling weighed down by her words. Betrayed, taken aback, and utterly disempowered, he eventually spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know what to say. You don't have to explain," Riley responded softly. "The documents are clear-cut. The house, the cars, and all the funds in our joint accounts will be yours. I seek nothing except a new beginning." Brandon looked at her intently, seeking understanding or explanation in her gaze, but she remained resolute, her decision unyielding. "Just sign the documents," she said softly yet firmly. "No need to complicate things further." After a lengthy pause, Brandon felt the burden of the situation settle in. The life he crafted, the concessions he made, the affection he invested into his marriage, it appeared to crumble before him. Yet, there was no malice evident in Riley's gaze, only a steady resolve to progress. "I'll sign them," he eventually replied, his voice echoing with resignation. "However, I require some time to come to terms with this." Riley acknowledged this, rising and collecting her belongings. "Take as much time as you need." As she exited the kitchen, Brandon remained seated at the table, scrutinizing the envelope. The sun persisted in filtering through the drapes, casting elongated shadows on the walls. For the first time in years, the house felt distressingly vacant. It was during his junior year of high school that Brandon initially spotted Riley standing beneath the bleachers at a football game, laughing with her friends while her light brown hair danced under the stadium lights, captivating him to the point of distraction. In the past, Riley was the girl who caught everyone's attention due to her self-assured, sociable nature and zest for living. Unexpectedly, she also took notice of the shy boy who preferred immersing himself in supply chain studies and market trends rather than playing football. Their initial encounter was at a modest diner situated beyond their Alabama hometown. Riley expressed her aspirations to travel globally, whereas Brandon, always pragmatic, disclosed his ambitions for constructing a secure lifestyle. Despite their contrasting personalities, they intertwined effortlessly, complementing each other. Riley infused enthusiasm into Brandon's life, while he provided the stability she was unaware she desired. By senior year, they became inseparable companions. They went to prom together, where Brandon anxiously mumbled a proposition for advancing their relationship post-graduation. Riley chuckled and told him there was no need for excessive contemplation. They had time, she remarked, but deep within, she had already decided that she wished to construct her life with him. A few years passed, and marriage ensued, welcoming twin daughters, Alice and Rachel. Rearing the girls served as their mutual objective. Brandon accepted a post at a neighborhood supermarket, advancing to manager. Despite the extended working hours, he returned every evening to a cozy meal and Riley's radiant smile. Their humble abode, situated in an Alabama suburb, transformed into a sanctuary, echoing with laughter, school assignments, and the occasional missteps during piano practice. The girls developed into confident and driven individuals, eventually departing for Columbia University. Riley and Brandon supported their journey, yet the void they left behind introduced a silent apprehension into the household. Brandon frequently pondered over his past decisions. In the initial stages of his profession, he was presented with possibilities to relocate, assume corporate positions, or even initiate a chain of stores. However, each occasion, he declined the offers. He believed it unnecessary to move the daughters from their home, he stated, convinced that maintaining family unity was wise. He immersed himself in providing for his family, frequently putting in overtime and taking on additional shifts during holidays. His commitment transcended work. He was the father who stayed up assisting with science fair projects, taught the girls how to ride bikes, and never missed a parent-teacher conference. He took great pride in his provider and protector roles, thinking it sufficient to keep their family stable. Yet, for Riley, Brandon's steadfastness sometimes felt like immobility. Though she respected his loyalty and work ethic, she couldn't ignore the escalating desire for something beyond the norm. She had envisioned a life teeming with adventures, propelled by ambition and bold decisions. Instead, they had constructed a life based on routine. Riley never questioned Brandon's love for her or their daughters. He was everything an ideal husband should be: faithful, respectful, reliable. Over time, she felt like she was dwelling in the aftermath of his sacrifices, suppressing her own aspirations. When their daughters departed for college, fissures emerged in their marriage. The mutual concern for family that once bonded them now underscored the chasm between them. Riley turned to jogging and started spending more time away from home, seeking solace in something to mend the emptiness. Although she never verbalized her emotions, Riley harbored a growing resentment towards their shared life, not for its comforts, but for the dreams she believed she had sacrificed. The clinking of Riley's spoon against her coffee cup was the only audible sound in the room. Brandon sat opposite her, the divorce documents still untouched on the table. He remained silent, his hands folded tightly before him. "You owe me an explanation," Brandon said eventually, his voice calmer than he felt. Riley hesitated, glancing at the papers and then back to him. "You're correct," she acknowledged. "The truth needs to be revealed to you." Unprepared for the impending revelation, Brandon stiffened. Yet, nothing could have readied him for her following statement. "I've been involved with another person," she whispered, her words cutting through the air like a knife. The room seemed to spin on its axis. Brandon blinked, struggling to inhale due to the weight of her disclosure. "Involved with someone else?" he questioned, surprise coloring his voice. "Yes," Riley responded more forcefully now, seemingly mustering strength to continue. "His name is Derek Grant. He's a real estate developer." "And for how long has this been happening?" Brandon inquired, speaking softly. "6 months," Riley confessed, gripping her hands tightly together. "This wasn't intentional, Brandon. I didn't seek this out. It simply transpired." Brandon chuckled bitterly, shaking his head. "Simply transpired? That's the explanation you choose." Riley flinched but stood firm. "I understand how terrible it sounds. I'm not proud of my actions. But Derek, he's unique. He exudes vigor and determination," Brandon interrupted tersely. "Is that what you were going to say?" Riley nodded, looking pained. "Yes, I understand it's unfair to you, but I can no longer ignore my feelings." Brandon leaned closer, his voice escalating. "You can't ignore your feelings. What about me, Riley? What about the life we shared? Does that hold no value for you?" "It does have value," Riley replied, her voice cracking. "You've been a fantastic husband, Brandon, but I've evolved. I need more than this." "So, what's your plan then?" Brandon asked sarcastically. "You depart with Derek and leave me behind with reams of paperwork." Riley straightened, her resolve becoming firm. "I'm moving in with him. He has a Riverview residence. It's what I desire." Brandon gazed at her, the woman he had loved for over 2 decades, and for the first time she appeared as a stranger. The room felt constricting, with walls closing in on Brandon as Riley's revelations penetrated his thoughts. He couldn't fathom it. The woman who had been beside him through thick and thin was now admitting to a deception he hadn't envisioned. "Aren't you listening to yourself, Riley?" Brandon questioned, his voice quivering with a blend of wrath and sorrow. "You're discarding 25 years for a man you've known for half a year?" "It isn't solely about Derek," Riley explained, her tone subdued but resolute. "It's about me, about my desires." "And what about your desires?" Brandon countered. "I relinquished promotions, chances, everything because I believed we were a team. Was I mistaken?" Riley's countenance softened, doubt flashing in her eyes. "No, Brandon, you weren't mistaken. You did everything correctly. That's what makes this so difficult." "Difficult for you?" Brandon retorted sarcastically. "You aren't the one taken aback. You've had 6 months to come to terms with it. After half a year for preparation, and now you expect me to simply accept it." "I'm not asking you to accept it," Riley stated, her voice steady yet laden with sorrow. "I'm asking for your permission to leave." Brandon pushed back his chair, causing an abrupt sound against the tile floor. He walked about the room, running his hands through his hair. "I can't believe this," he mumbled more to himself than to her. "After all these years, and this is how it ends?" Riley stood up as well, folding her arms across her chest. "This isn't easy for me either, Brandon," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "It pains me that I'm causing you pain, but staying in this marriage would cause us both more suffering." Brandon stopped pacing and turned to face her. "What hurts the most?" he asked, his voice softer now but no less agonized. "It's not just that you were unfaithful," he continued. "It's that you didn't first attempt to discuss this with me, to mend it." "I didn't know how," Riley confessed, tears glistening in her eyes. "Perhaps, in truth, I hadn't wanted to." Her apology echoed sincerely, yet failed to alleviate the heaviness in Brandon's heart. He gazed at her one last time, the woman he believed he understood, and felt the impact of her words as a stone settling within him. Without uttering another word, he departed, leaving Riley alone. The soft sound of the door closing signaled the conclusion of an epoch, a union born out of love and trust, now reduced to recollections and signed documents. Brandon stayed late at the kitchen table, the divorce papers finally inked and sealed. The room resonated with an unsettling quiet, but his mind buzzed with turmoil. Despite the tempest of feelings surging within him, he discerned a faint, unfamiliar sense of clarity. The life he had lived for 25 years was vanishing, yet he found himself with a choice to hold on to what was lost or to begin anew. The following day, Brandon awoke before sunrise, resolute on embarking on the initial stages of reconstructing his life. His primary objective was mundane yet symbolic: selling Riley's Subaru. She had elected to live with Derek and his luxury car instead, leaving it behind. Brandon took the vehicle to the dealership where they had initially purchased it years prior. It received a reasonable price, but its value wasn't significant compared to what it symbolized: the first tangible indication of progress. At home, he embarked on the overwhelming task of clearing out the house. Riley's vacancy was palpable, with half-filled closets and bare bathroom vanities serving as daily reminders of the emptiness that lingered. Brandon approached this task methodically, filling bags with Riley's remaining possessions and packaging items for donation. The wedding photos, anniversary mementos, and personal trinkets proved the most difficult to part with. Although Brandon had been the one to acknowledge it, it was always these keepsakes that caused the most disruption. Following a prolonged silence, he formulated a plan. He retained photographs showcasing their daughters, but eliminated items solely related to their matrimonial life. Over time, the home transformed from a joint living space into his personal sanctuary. With renewed perspective about the future, Brandon reached out to Max, an old companion and real estate broker, who consented to assist in selling the house promptly. "We'll set the right price and make it appealing," Max assured during a brief conversation over the phone. The prospect of departing from the house carried a mix of sweetness and sadness, yet Brandon recognized its inevitability. Simultaneously, he addressed the monetary aspects with unwavering resolve. He established new bank accounts, canceled joint credit cards, and made sure Riley's name was erased from all possessions. Even the phone company received a call to disconnect her line and transfer full control of the account to him. These seemingly minor yet impactful actions underscored his resoluteness in progressing forward. Weekends later, Brandon arranged a yard sale, disposing of decades-old possessions. The occasion was simultaneously purifying and dreamlike. Neighbors visited, offering comfort and light chatter. By day's end, the driveway stood vacant, and the house felt less burdened, shedding its old literal and symbolic weight. With a yard sale profits supplementing his savings, Brandon mulled over future plans. A 3-month sabbatical, long deferred, appeared an ideal chance for contemplation and rejuvenation. One evening, Brandon sat on the sofa, his phone weighing heavily in his hand. The most challenging aspect of everything wasn't signing divorce papers or packing the house. It was informing Alice and Rachel. After a prolonged silence, he dialed Alice's number. "Hey, Dad," Alice's upbeat voice responded from the other end. "All good at home?" "Yes." Brandon hesitated before taking a deep breath. "It's everything okay, sweetie? I'm fine." "Brandon wished to discuss something significant with you and Rachel. Are you all right?" Alice inquired, noticing worry in her voice. "The topic at hand concerned your mother and him." They had decided to part ways, he explained. A pause ensued as Alice seemed to process the news. She inquired, uncertainly, if they meant to separate. Forever. Yes, Brandon confirmed, it was a divorce. It was a mutual decision, one they felt was best for both parties. Had Rachel been informed? No, Brandon shared, hoping you could assist him in disclosing the news. Both daughters appeared stunned initially, but eventually showed their support. Likewise, Rachel questioned Brandon's well-being, mirroring her sister's concern. Brandon assured them, I am. He expressed pride in both of them, a feeling that would remain constant. Before ending the call, Alice reminded him, if you need anything, just reach out to us, okay? We're here for you, Dad. Their words of support soothed his troubled heart, igniting a newfound determination within him. He wasn't merely ending a marriage, he was embarking on a journey to rediscover himself. His daughter's faith in him provided the necessary fortitude to start this new chapter. The crisp, cool air accompanied Brandon as he ascended the rough trail at Hayes Ridge, a 2,000-acre conservation area overseen by the local trust. With his GPS and metal detector on his shoulder, he experienced an uncommon tranquility. Geocaching had always been his sanctuary, offering him solace and focusing his mind on the exhilaration of the hunt. Today's mission was to find one of the oldest survey markers in the area, said to be buried deep within the woods. After about an hour of pushing through thick foliage and avoiding poison ivy patches, the faint beep of the metal detector echoed in the silence. Brandon knelt, clearing away dirt and leaves to reveal a worn brick monument buried beneath. A tiny bronze plaque identified it as the sought-after marker. Grinning with accomplishment, he snapped a picture quickly before gathering his things to leave. As soon as he stood up, the metal detector buzzed faintly again. Intrigued, Brandon retraced his steps and rechecked the area. The signal intensified a few feet from the marker. Once more on his knees, he dug carefully, his fingers feeling against something solid. After several minutes of work, he excavated a small iron box covered in oil-soaked canvas. The box was weighty. Its surface showed signs of rust, but remained intact. Brandon's heart pounded as he inspected it. It didn't appear modern. Its design hinted at its age, perhaps decades, if not centuries old. At home, Brandon placed the box on his kitchen table. A brief pause ensued as he pondered informing the land trust about the find, but his curiosity prevailed. He employed bolt cutters to delicately break the lock and peeked beneath layers of aged cloth within. 13 large cent coins, each sparkling unblemished by time, were revealed. Brandon gasped as he gingerly extracted them. These weren't ordinary coins. Their intricate designs and inscriptions remained crisp. For a moment, Brandon was frozen, overwhelmed by his racing thoughts. He wasn't well versed in large cents beyond what he'd garnered from an old book his grandfather had bequeathed him. Regardless, it became evident this wasn't a typical find. That night, Brandon searched for the dusty book from his grandfather's collection, The Enigmas of the Penny. For years untouched, he now flipped through its pages with rekindled curiosity, contrasting the engravings with the large cents scattered before him. Each cent, minted between 1793 and 1857, stood out against contemporary pennies due to their size and artistry. With his magnifying glass, Brandon uncovered intricate details, such as mint marks, flawless edges, and scarce variants he'd merely heard of theoretically. A specific coin caught his attention, the 1793 chained cent, the U.S. Mint's first officially struck coin. It was astonishingly well preserved, a scarcely believable discovery in its condition. Enthralled, Brandon spent hours scouring the internet for information on the coins. Auction records and collector forums painted a vivid picture. These coins were uncommon, and in their state, they held an exorbitant value. Valuations for similar coins varied from tens of thousands to millions of dollars. This can't be true, Brandon whispered to himself, checking his findings repeatedly. However, the proof was indisputable. Each coin was a valuable find on its own, accumulating to be a life-altering fortune. This discovery brought a surge of vitality to him, erasing the lethargy that had settled in after his divorce. For the first time in months, Brandon felt a flicker of anticipation about the days ahead. He wasn't merely holding a box of coins, he was gripping the key to a new phase in his existence. Motivated to safeguard his find, Brandon stowed away the coins in a secure vault and delved into researching trusted dealers and auction houses. The unassuming grocery store manager, who had dedicated years to family duties, was now venturing into the realm of precious artifacts and complex transactions. For the first time, the prospects ahead seemed boundless. As Brandon entered the towering glass edifice that housed Adams and Burns, one of the nation's top auction houses, the lofty New York City skyscrapers appeared to reach indefinitely towards the heavens. Holding his folder of photos and papers, Brandon felt a blend of anxiety and anticipation. This was a realm distinct from the grocery store aisles and tranquil suburbs of Alabama he was accustomed to. A well-dressed receptionist guided him to a secluded office where Leo Adams, one of the co-founders, warmly greeted him with a handshake. "Mr. Atkinson, welcome to Adams and Burns. I've heard you've brought us something exceptional," Leo said. Brandon acknowledged gratefully, settling opposite Leo. He displayed high-resolution images of 4 coins from his collection, each carefully labeled with specific details. Leo scrutinized the photos intently, his face changing from professional interest to obvious admiration. "These are remarkable," he affirmed, pointing at a remarkably well-preserved 1793 chain cent. "The condition alone makes them rare, but this is museum quality." Brandon returned a modest smile. "I thought so too. That's why I'm here." Brandon proposed selling 4 coins under a single condition, and Leo raised an eyebrow for inquiry. The condition was revealed as requiring Adams and Burns to purchase a $600,000 plot of land in Alabama, then donate it to a local land trust. The sale profits were intended to cover this expense. The room became quiet as Leo read the letter, his expression remaining ambiguous. Upon conclusion of reading, Leo looked up and acknowledged, "That's an unconventional request." Brandon acknowledged the uniqueness, but justified it by highlighting the land trust's role in preserving something significant for years to come, also mentioning potential tax benefits. Leo found Brandon's proposal compelling, nodding and agreeing. "We'll proceed under the condition that these coins pass our appraiser's evaluation." Brandon expressed confidence in meeting this standard. Adelaide Langley, one of the firm's co-owners, extended her well-groomed hand towards Brandon. Her presence was captivating, radiating confidence, grace, and natural elegance. Addressing him as Mr. Atkinson, she expressed pleasure at their meeting, mentioning positive impressions about his collection. Despite a hint of authority in her tone, she managed to make him feel comfortable. The following morning, Brandon received a call from Adelaide. In a casual tone, she asked if he could meet for coffee before his flight back to Alabama, hinting at a matter needing discussion. Intrigued, he agreed. They convened at a stylish cafe near Central Park, where Adelaide immediately broached the subject. "I think your coins hold more importance than you realize," she suggested, "and an offshore account could be the wisest choice for managing the earnings." Brandon showed signs of hesitation. "An offshore account?" she reiterated. "Isn't this matter intricate?" Adelaide reassured him. "It's a question of safety and confidentiality, especially considering assets of such worth. If you're intrigued, I'd be delighted to walk you through it. Incidentally, I'm departing for the Cayman Islands tomorrow for business matters and could potentially arrange for your inclusion." His interest was piqued, and Adelaide's assertiveness left an impression. Before he realized, he found himself aboard a first-class flight to the Caymans next to her. The journey combined both business and leisure. Adelaide's incisive intellect and extensive financial knowledge made our discussions fruitful, while her amiable demeanor transformed meals into opportunities for meaningful interaction. Over fresh catch and exotic drinks, we exchanged tales of our lives, hers brimming with high-stakes transactions and globe-trotting, his centered around the comforts of family and daily life. One night on her seaside condo balcony, Adelaide turned to Brandon with contemplative eyes. "Unlike the individuals I typically work with, Brandon, friends seem preoccupied with the next major opportunity. However, you are an exception. Grounded is more fitting." Brandon smiled in response, though grounded could also imply dull. She shook her head, flashing a smile. Not dull, authentic. It's invigorating. For the first time in months, Brandon felt recognized for who he truly was, not just as a grocery store manager or a divorced man starting anew, but as someone possessing worth that transcended his situation. Spencer admired his physique and enjoyed labeling people, much like branding cattle. But over time, branding became corrupted. By the time they reached New York, the offshore account was in place, and so was a tacit bond between them. As Adelaide escorted Brandon to his cab, she presented him with a key. "For my extra room," she said offhandedly. "If you ever choose to relocate to New York." Watching her depart, Brandon felt both apprehensive and exhilarated. The future was no longer a blank page. It was a canvas yearning for his unique touch. In Alabama, Brandon sat at his kitchen table, sipping coffee while scrutinizing the final sale documents from Adams and Burns. The transaction of the 4 coins had concluded smoothly, the earnings now securely deposited in an offshore account, a wealth Brandon had only dreamed of possessing. His life, once dominated by budgeting, bills, and strategic planning, suddenly offered financial liberty. This newfound freedom brought with it a burgeoning feeling of empowerment. The discovery and sale of the coins ignited a dormant ambition within Brandon that he hadn't experienced in years. He delved deeper into coin collecting, trawling online forums, and networking with credible dealers to learn how to increase the worth of his remaining collections pieces. At night, he would delve into listings, merging his recent pastime with an emerging business acumen. His increasing financial security enabled bold decisions. He successfully disposed of his Alabama residence at a reasonable price due to Max's assistance and initiated the journey to New York. The shift felt less like escaping and more like advancing towards something significant. Each incremental step fortified Brandon's self-assurance. He refreshed his wardrobe, trading in worn flannels for tailored shirts and trousers, and began viewing himself from a fresh perspective. No longer was he just a grocery manager. Now, he perceived himself as someone adept at handling high-stakes transactions, managing wealth, and sculpting a future according to his design. The people around him acknowledged the change. Former neighbors, who had regarded Brandon as understated and routine, would now approach him at stores or during yard sales, remarking on his transformation. Confident and even driven, Brandon acknowledged the praise from others, but understood that his transformation was self-driven. Adelaide had left an indelible mark on him, despite their time together being short. Her unwavering confidence and bold approach to life showed him possibilities he hadn't previously considered. She subtly motivated him without forcing him, allowing him to make his own choices while gently guiding him towards the right path. Over dinner in New York, she posed a question that stayed with him. Why settle for comfort when you're capable of so much more? This question often resurfaced when he doubted himself, pushing him forward. Brandon found himself emulating some of Adelaide's qualities, not her polished sophistication, but her conviction in pursuing what truly mattered. He started setting clear objectives for himself, a practice he had neglected for years. Brandon decided to expand his understanding of coin collecting, take chances, and pursue hobbies he had neglected while prioritizing family. Adelaide's words dispelled his self-doubt. During a phone call, she told him, "You're more resourceful than you think, Brandon. Don't let anyone, not even yourself, believe otherwise." Emboldened by Adelaide's affirmation, Brandon embraced this new phase of life. He arranged his relocation to New York, intending to temporarily stay in Adelaide's spare room as he mapped out his future moves. The prospect of leaving behind the familiar was intimidating, yet, for the first time, it didn't feel like a risk. It felt like progress. As Brandon packed his last possessions, he noticed a change in his demeanor reflected in the mirror. There was a newfound quiet confidence in his stance and countenance that hadn't been there before. He smiled, recognizing that this wasn't merely about wealth or aspiration. Cracks in Derek Grant's empire surfaced merely months after Riley moved in with him. His riverfront development company, once applauded for its innovative real estate ventures, was now grappling with delays and financial deficits. The luxurious riverside apartment, the stylish BMW, and the exclusive social events were all sustained by precarious loans and overextended assets. Initially, Riley remained oblivious to the brewing crisis. Derek's charisma and confidence often brushed off concerns as temporary setbacks or cash flow issues. However, as time passed, it became increasingly difficult for her to ignore the signs. Contractors were backing out of deals, creditors were demanding payments, and rumors of financial instability infiltrated their once prestigious social circle. Riley's world came crashing down when Derek's creditors filed lawsuits, seizing his assets and leaving him cornered. One morning, Riley discovered Derek's possessions were gone and a hurriedly written note on the counter. "I must temporarily disappear." However, Derek never came back. The brutal truth struck Riley, stranded in a city with few acquaintances and no financial resources. Their apartment, rented under Derek's name, was seized within weeks. Her parents, empathetic but powerless, could only provide advice she didn't want. Pride hindered her from contacting her daughters, who had questioned Derek. For the first time in years, Riley felt isolated. The life she imagined when leaving Brandon now seemed like a bitter jest. The security she assumed during marriage was vanished, replaced by an unsettling fear of her future. It was a humid afternoon when Riley unexpectedly appeared at Brandon's doorstep. Brandon had wrapped up moving his possessions for his relocation to New York. Finding Riley standing there, nervously gripping her purse, took him aback. "Riley," he replied, maintaining a neutral tone, "this is unexpected." "May I enter?" she questioned, appearing hesitant. Brandon gave a nod, moving aside to allow her access. The house was largely devoid of contents, the vacant walls and stacked boxes plainly indicating his imminent departure. Riley surveyed the area, taking in the alterations. "You're leaving." "Indeed," Brandon confirmed. "New York," she acknowledged, fiddling with her purse strap. "I've heard about your coins. You've made something of yourself." Brandon arched an eyebrow. "Why have you come, Riley?" She paused, then released a sigh. I need assistance, Brandon." There it was, the confession she had possibly found difficult to make. Brandon folded his arms, leaning against the doorway. Riley whispered, "I need assistance regarding Derek." She looked drained and defeated. "He abandoned me with nothing. I don't know where else to seek help." Brandon scrutinized her for a moment. The woman before him was an altered version of the once self-assured and confident Riley he remembered. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said coolly, maintaining distance. Riley lifted her gaze towards him, examining his face. "Is this all you have to offer? After everything we've been through, isn't there more?" Brandon inhaled deeply before responding. "Riley, I feel for your predicament, but you sacrificed numerous opportunities thinking we were constructing something meaningful together. It seems that was insufficient for you." "That's not fair," she retorted, her voice cracking. "I erred, Brandon. I ask for help now." Brandon acknowledged her observation. He clarified it wasn't about fairness, but progression. He'd discovered a fresh path in life, and he couldn't retrace his steps. Riley seemed on the verge of disagreement, yet merely nodded instead. "I get it," she whispered. As she departed, Brandon felt a pang of remorse, but was convinced he had made the correct decision. He had spent far too long living for others. This time, it was all about him. The days preceding Brandon's relocation were chaotic with activity. The house sale wrapped up efficiently due to Max's meticulousness, and the new buyers were eager to assume ownership. With the funds securely banked, Brandon concentrated on clearing out the last vestiges of his Alabama life. Boxes adorned the nearly vacant house, each neatly tagged and prepared for the movers. Brandon found solace in this process. It was like discarding the burden of his past and making space for something fresh. Packing led him to an old album with photos of Alice and Rachel growing up. Going through its pages brought smiles to his face, but no sense of loss. He provided them a secure upbringing, and now it was his turn to focus on himself. A week prior to his departure, Alice and Rachel unexpectedly dropped by. Their trademark vitality and warmth revitalized the house instantly. "Dad, this is unbelievable," Alice remarked upon the organized pandemonium of packed boxes. "You're truly doing it." Indeed, Brandon confirmed with a gentle smile. Rachel wrapped him in an embrace. "We're so proud of you," she said. "This couldn't have been simple." "It wasn't," Brandon conceded. "But it's the proper decision." The day was spent assisting him in wrapping up loose ends, sifting through last-minute items, and strolling around the neighborhood where they'd both grown up. As the sun dipped, they sat on the front porch together, exchanging tales and laughter. Alice spoke gravely, expressing that Brandon's persistence illustrated the essence of progress. Such a lesson would linger in their memories. Proud, Brandon nodded. His appreciation for his daughters valuing his tenacity surpassed any wealth-induced gratification. That evening, Brandon's phone vibrated with Adelaide's call. As usual, her voice exuded unforced assurance. "Brandon," she began, "are you prepared for the major relocation?" He responded, almost finished with a few tasks. "Wonderful. Your belongings will be delivered to my flat by movers. The extra room is readied, and I expect you to feel right at home." Brandon chuckled softly. "You make it seem straightforward." Adelaide's voice softened slightly. "It indeed is simple. You embark on a fresh journey with an exceptional city providing a front-row view. What's not to appreciate?" Though Brandon had been apprehensive about her proposal earlier, he now sensed excitement. Adelaide's invitation transcended practicalities. It embodied their growing connection and hinted at deeper possibilities. As movers finished loading his belongings from his Alabama home for the last time, Brandon stood outside, bidding farewell to years of memories, both blissful and agonizing, feeling like the conclusion of a story. By the time he boarded the plane to New York, Brandon was not merely leaving behind a house. He was relinquishing the man he once was. The city anticipating him promised potential, development, and maybe an opportunity for something entirely unforeseen. Upon arrival, Adelaide greeted him at the terminal, her presence as comforting as ever. As they walked through Manhattan's crowded streets together, Brandon felt a renewed determination. His voyage was not completed, it was merely commencing. On Adelaide's apartment balcony, holding a glass of wine and overlooking the endless city lights, Brandon sensed a renewed purpose. Nick buzzed with vigor, a striking contrast to the tranquil suburbs of Alabama he departed from earlier. A city brimming with aspiration and transformation, Brandon felt a sense of belonging for the first time in years. Pondering over the recent months, he marveled at his progress. The agony brought about by Riley's deceit had once appeared insurmountable. Yet it now seemed like an old tale. He had seized control of his life in ways he never believed possible. Unearthing a hidden wealth, making daring financial decisions, and abandoning a life that no longer suited him, the trauma of his divorce propelled Brandon to face aspects of himself he had neglected for years. For long, he measured his worth based on his provision for others, relinquishing his dreams in the process. But now, he was learning to prioritize himself, to embrace the risks and rewards of carving a new path. His Nick days teemed with chances for personal development. Every morning found Brandon delving into coin markets and perusing auctions, afternoons strolling through the city's museums and parks, and nights engaged in animated discussions with Adelaide during dinner. Each day seemed a stride towards the person Brandon was evolving to be, a man shaped not by his past, but by his future possibilities. Brandon's transformation extended beyond his circumstances. It was about reclaiming his identity and discovering the self-assurance he had forfeited in years of conformity and yielding. The distressing era he left behind in Alabama no longer encumbered him. It served as a bedrock for something more robust. As Brandon acclimated to his new existence, his relationship with Adelaide deepened. Originating as a professional alliance, it had evolved into something richer. Although neither hastened to label it, Adelaide's unassuming self-confidence and keen intellect stimulated Brandon in ways he hadn't encountered before. Each day, Brandon ponders the future, yet this time, he's content without immediately solving everything. Instead, he's savoring the journey. Adelaide, with a contemplative grin, inquired, "Don't you sometimes wonder about what's to come?" Her voice held curiosity. Brandon chuckled, twirling his wine. "Often, but now I'm not in a hurry to solve it all. I'm relishing the experience." Adelaide's smile broadened. "That's good for you." Despite his reservations about commencing a new relationship, Brandon couldn't ignore the connection between them. Adelaide transcended her role as a mentor or friend. She recognized him beyond his past self. Professionally, Brandon's relocation to New York presented opportunities he hadn't known existed in coin collecting and auctions. A few profitable deals and thoughts of transforming his hobby into a business were already emerging. The city's abundant resources and connections made the impossible seem plausible. Months passed, and Brandon understood he wasn't merely existing, but prospering. A man who had harbored self-doubt found renewed purpose through diligence, tenacity, and the unanticipated encouragement from individuals such as Adelaide and his daughters. To Brandon, the future was no longer a vacant expanse. It was an untouched canvas brimming with potential for a life richly lived. For the first time in years, he felt prepared to color that canvas.